Today we are going to talk about circumference and area of a circle. We're going to start with a couple of definitions. So the distance from one side of the circle to the center, which is halfway across the circle through the center, is called the radius. And the distance from one side of the circle to the other side of the circle through the center is called diameter. Okay, and then we have the distance around the outside of the circle, which if we were looking at like a rectangle, would be called a perimeter, but for a circle, it is called circumference. And then we have pi, pi, which is represented by this symbol right here, and is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. So C over D, which is approximately equal to 3.14 rounded. So when we see pi, we will plug in the number 3.14. We have two formulas when finding circumference and circumference when given diameter and when given radius. But for this first problem, we are going to only find the radius and diameter. Okay, so according to our definition, when our line only goes halfway, this is our radius. So our radius is 6 meters. Okay, and then for when given radius to find diameter, diameter is all the way through the center, so that's twice as long as the radius. So if diameter equals 2 times, in the place of r, we're going to place 6, and diameter equals 12 meters. And then number 2, we are also going to find diameter and radius. So now our line goes all the way through the center to the other side, which means that that is our diameter, which is 18 centimeters. And radius only goes half that distance. So to find radius, we're going to take our diameter and we're going to divide it by 2. So radius equals 18 divided by 2, which equals 9 centimeters. So that's how to go from radius to diameter. And then now we're going to focus on actually finding circumference. Okay, so here we see that it goes half the distance. So this is our radius. So that means I'm going to use this formula right here. And I'm going to write my formula always. C equals 2 pi r. Now I'm going to plug in my values. So I have a 2. We are going to use 3.14 for pi. And then my radius is 18. Okay. When finding circumference with this formula, I always multiply my 2 times my radius. And I get that C equals 36 times 3.14. Okay. So I have 3.14 times 36. Remember, when we're using multiplication, we tend to put the number with the most digits on top, not necessarily the biggest number. We have 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 2 is 8. And then 6 times 3 is 18. 0 for a place value holder. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. And then 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, now we're adding. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 2 is 10. 8 plus 1 is 9, plus 4 is 13. And then 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So we have two numbers to write the decimal, so we're going to move our decimal back into our problem, moving it over 2 times. And so our circumference equals 113.04 inches squared. Okay, let's go to number 4. So this time we see that our line goes all the way across, which means this is our diameter. So for the circumference in this problem, we would use C equals pi d. So we're going to write that formula down, C equals pi d. And C equals 4 pi 3.14, and then our diameter is 9. Okay, so then here we're just multiplying. 3.14 and 9. Two numbers to the right of the decimal. 9 times 4 is 36. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. And then we have 9 times 3, which is 27, plus 1 is 28. Two numbers to the right of the decimal, so we move our decimal back in 2 times, and we get that our circumference is 28.26 units. Okay. And for our final one, here we are finding the diameter. So this time they gave us circumference. So if we're finding diameter, we're going to want to use this formula. And so we're going to write our formula down, C equals pi d. But because C is 8.9, instead of writing C, we're going to write 8.9 equals 3.14 times d. So here we would use our equation rules, which is our inverse operation. So this is multiplication, so we would divide by 3.14 and divide by 3.14. So that leaves d on the right side, which is exactly what we wanted. And then we need to set up our division problem. So 8.9 divided by 3.14. We don't divide by decimals. We make them into whole numbers, so I move it over 2 times. And what I do on the outside, I have to do on the inside. After I move my decimals over, I like to rewrite my problem. So 314, 890, and then don't forget your decimal, okay? So then 314 into 890 is going to go in 2 times. And then 314 times 2 is 628. Then we need to subtract. We need to borrow. So 10 minus 8 is 2. 8 minus 2 is 6. And 8 minus 6 is 2. Okay, so then we're going to add a 0 after this decimal. Okay, and 314 dividing into 2,620. Let's see, 3 goes into 26 around 7 times. It might be 8. So let's do 314. Just to work off to the side. 314 times 8. 8 times 3 is 32. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 3 is 11. 8 times 3 is 24 plus 1 is 25. Okay, so that worked. So place an 8 right here. 2, 5, 1, 2. Then we subtract and we get 108. We're going to round to the nearest tenth, so we're going to go one more time, and then we are good. So 314 goes into 1,083 times, okay? 3 times 314 is 942, and then we subtract. We have to borrow here. 10 minus 2 is 8, 7 minus 4 is 3. We have to borrow again, and 10 minus 9 is 1. Okay, so 2.83, and like I said, we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So this is where we want to stop. And so we're going to look to the right, and if it's 4 or less, we drop it off. 2.8 yards. If it was 5 or more, we would add 1 to the 8 to make it 2.9. But it was 4 or less, so we just drop it off. Okay. So that's circumference. If you have any questions, please let me know in class.